I was a Paralympic athlete in 2002 in the Winter Games that were in Salt Lake City. I was exposed to the Olympic Games back in 1976, and I set a goal that I might someday be able to compete at that level. The Olympic ideal, as established by the people who founded the Olympics, like the Baron de Coubertin, he said, to win is one thing, but everyone should take a certain amount of satisfaction in competing. And that's the drive to compete is what's inside all of us, regardless of whether we win the gold medal. One thing I learned about Paralympic competition is that it's really based on individual performance, but individuals with disabilities have widely different abilities in terms of their bodies. And so we rely on a system where brackets are created that make it so that everybody's racing against fair competition. And that becomes a really important element in the thinking pattern of an individual who's heading down the Paralympic tryout sort of system. So technology impacts the athlete with a disability in a pretty major way. In 2007, Oscar Pistorius was an athlete in South Africa who tried out to be a member of the South African relay team on the track. And he runs on two limbs that are called cheetahs. They are a curved piece of carbon fiber that acts like a spring. And when Oscar runs, the spring compresses itself and then launches him ahead by the amount it's compressed. And that's how he runs, having one of these on each of his legs. Oscar in 2007 ran fast enough to qualify as a member of the South African relay team to run in Beijing in 2008. But as soon as he qualified, around the world some people complained and said his limbs have given him an advantage over a pure human body and an ankle, and that led to some interesting tests. Originally, Oscar was banned where he couldn't run in the Beijing Games. They decided that it was too much of an advantage to have these limbs. After some testing in Germany, they did decide that his ankle or his device could be as much as 30% more efficient than a human ankle. Because of this efficiency that develops over time, not right out of the blocks, but over time, some people labeled his prosthetics as techno-doping. And that made it seem as though he was cheating to gain an unfair advantage. In spite of the result that was at least produced by this institute in Germany, this public sentiment went the other way and said, if he can run fast enough, let him run. Because that's what the Olympics are all about, individual merit. And he ran fast enough that he qualified, and so they lifted the ban and they let him run in the Beijing Games. In those Beijing Games, he was not fast enough to contend for a medal, and he blamed the legal fight, which took over 2 years, for the problems why he didn't have enough time to train and become good enough on the track to contend for a medal. So he swore that at the end of the Beijing Games, he would be back for the London Games at that time to contend for a medal more seriously. In the Beijing Games, there was another person who was competing in the Olympics who had an amputation, but her leg amputation was above the knee, and it was only one leg, and she was a swimmer. She left her prosthetic on the poolside, and so people thought that giving her the chance to swim was not an advantage, having only one leg, even though that would reduce the amount of drag her body had. They didn't think of it an advantage to not kick with 2 feet, and they let her race. She didn't win a medal also, but there was nobody telling the world that she should be disallowed or banned. So in 2012, the London Games, Oscar Pistorius did again make the South African relay team. Oscar's team ran well, but Oscar individually wasn't thought to be an advantage or a disadvantage on the team, and the team did not earn a medal. Oscar felt it was a victory anyway because he was able to get over get through the dialogue that he was running as a person who was being assisted by technology rather than running on his own individual merit as a sprinter. His attorney said there's hundreds and hundreds of people using these exact same blades. None of them can run as fast as Oscar. So if it were only blades, there'd be lots of people who could match his performance, when in fact, no one else could, which emphasized the part of Oscar that he is a great sprinter. But by allowing Oscar to run in the London Games in 2012, it also opens the door for increases in prosthetic technology, which could potentially make it so that in longer distance races, the next athlete after Oscar could come along and potentially win race is designed for human competition. And if you can project that out farther, perhaps everyone in the top 10 would have amputations and prosthetics, and that would spoil, in most people's minds, the idea of the Olympics being for the purity of the human form and sport of it all.